So this is pretty crazy. We started out to do one video, but we ended up having to do a completely different one. So this is a little bit of a story, so follow along so you can understand exactly what brought us to this point. So this started about a year ago. I built an engine and wiped out 2 cams in this motor during the break-in period. Both of the cams were from a reputable manufacturer that's known for exceptionally high quality. So I have no doubt that the cam was good. Both times I used sealed power lifters. Now before I say anything else, Sealed Power does not manufacture lifters. There's only 2 lifter manufacturers in the world. Sealed Power is just a packager. So it doesn't matter if you buy them from Sealed Power or you buy them from any of these other. Alright. So we wipe out these 2 cams during the break-in period. I'm stupefied by this because in 40 plus years of building engines, and I mean countless hundreds of cam swaps and lifters and everything else over the years, I've never lost one. So to kill 2 of them in one shot, I was stupefied. So I start hitting the forums and I'm doing all of my research, and I'm finding out that this isn't just me, this is like an epidemic. I see case after case after case after case of people having the same exact problem. The cam's wiped out during break-in or immediately after break-in. They drive it for 100 miles and it's gone. Now, I knew that I had followed all of the correct procedures. It's just a second nature. I knew that each lifter dropped into the bore easily. The lifters were coated, the cam was coated. I used a high zinc break-in oil. The initial break-in was instant start, 2,000 RPM for 20 minutes. Textbook. Never had a problem. But yet it still wiped out these 2 cams. So I, like pretty much everybody else, the consensus, blame the lifters. But there was no real specific reason. So people would speculate that it had bad metallurgy or, you know, just improper machining, but nobody had anything definitive. So fast forward to this last couple of days, and I'm contemplating an engine build for a project car that we're doing for next year. So I'm running through the mental inventory, and I'm saying, well, let's see, I'll use this block, use these heads, cam. And then I had a flashback to this problem. And the way I fixed this last issue was I just converted to roller, which is a great solution, but it's expensive. You know, you're talking about over $1,000 by the time you're done with all of the hardware to make a roller conversion on a non-roller block. So I'm like, oof, that's not really an option. So you know what? Let me figure out, there has to be a definitive reason why these lifters go bad. Because everywhere I searched, everything I researched, nobody had an actual answer. Nobody could point at the smoking gun and say, here, this is it, this is the problem. And examining them after the fact doesn't tell you anything because they're already wiped out. So there has to be something that's identifiable with the new lifters, but I don't know what it is. So I'm going to have to do some examination. I'm going to have to do some research to try to come up with the answer because that's my job. That's what I do. I come up with answers. So contemplating this, I'm remembering seeing some lifters, and I don't remember exactly which ones they were, but I remember seeing some lifters with some odd machine marks over their surface here, where instead of it being ground, polished, smooth, I remember seeing some straight lines across. And that's a problem because a lifter is ground with a bit of a crown. The face of the lifter here has a bit of a crown, and what that does is that meets up with a taper that's ground into the camshaft lobe, and that's what allows this thing to spin. So I'm saying, you know what? There has to be something with the face of the lifter, maybe something to do with those odd machine marks that I've seen in the past. Let me do some research. Let me get my hands on some lifters and so, with that, I called my local auto parts store that I do a lot of business with. Now, I'm not going to tell you which auto parts store it is, mostly because it's not the fault of the people necessarily who are running it. Maybe it was an honest mistake, but let's just say it's a national chain equal to any of the other national chains. It's a name you know right off the top of your head. So I call him up, I says, hey, you got any Chrysler lifters on the shelf? And by the way, this problem isn't exclusively to Chrysler. This is, you see the same thing popping up with Fords, Chevys, Pontiacs, all of them. But my build was around a Chrysler, so I wanted to see, sealed power Chrysler lifters. Do you have any on the shelf that I can examine? So they said, yeah, we got 90 of them. I said, you got 90? Okay. Do you mind if I come and take some out of the packages and examine them? And they're like, no, knock yourself out. So I run up there. And I don't know what I'm looking for just yet, but they already have a bunch of them out on the bench for me to look at. So first one I take out of the box was this one. And I didn't have my glasses on, and that's important. I really needed to have my glasses on. Didn't seem to be important at the time. And I look at the lifter real quick, and I'm like, okay, it's got some marks on it, right? But the face of it, this part of it, doesn't look like it's ground correctly. Don't have my glasses on. Doesn't look like it's really ground correctly. So I says, let me just check for crown like this. So I took the lifter and I put it on a piece of aluminum that was there, a flat surface, and I went to rock it, okay? And there was no rocking motion at all. So I took a piece of paper, I took a receipt like this one from the two lifters that I just bought. And I take the receipt and I pull the lifter back and I try to slide the paper under the lifter. It won't move, which means that there's zero crown in this lifter. I take another one out of the box. Now this is all grouped together. These are all the same, out of the same package, same group. And I do the same thing. I take this lifter right here, and this is the exact lifter, and I pull it back, and I take my piece of paper, and it slides right under. You see? See, now if I tilt it forward, the paper won't come out. And that's the crown. So this lifter I know is good. This one has no crown. I'm like, I found the problem. So I bring them home and I'm like, okay, we're going to shoot this video. I found the issue. Some of these brand new lifters out of the box don't have a crown. So now I put my glasses on and I'm examining the lifter. And I'm looking at the lifter, right? And I see that it has this mark around the bottom part of it right here. It has some like burnished sort of areas. And I take a piece of steel wool and I clean this right here and this line disappears. I'm like, oh, okay, we got a problem here. Then I look at the bottom of it and this is obviously used. Not only does it not have a crown, but when I check it, it's actually concave. This is a lifter that had some mileage on it. I'm like, well, okay, but maybe this was just mistakes in terms of like machining or something like that. So it looks new otherwise, so I take it apart. I don't know if I can get this back apart again. Okay, the center of it doesn't want to come out. But it's loaded with oil. It shouldn't have any oil. It's filled with used engine oil. And I tasted it. Because like, that doesn't look like machining oil. And I tasted it. I had that minty kind of taste that machining oil is supposed to have, but it also has the same taste that a high zinc oil would have, like a break-in oil. And then I realized, this is a lifter that I returned to that store as a defect last year. They stuck it back in a box. I stuck them back in the box, and instead of returning them to the manufacturer as defect, they put them on the shelf. That's my old lifter. It's one of the ones that didn't wipe out completely, but it was going to wipe out. It was in the process of wiping out. What do you do with something like this? Like I said, I bought both of these lifters figuring, okay, let's go home and let's do this video on how one is crowned and one isn't. But as it turns out, the video is, I got sold my old lifter from the auto parts store. If I had taken these things as a package, and a lot of times when you're building an engine, you've got 16 lifters, So what you're doing is you're popping them out of the box and you're dipping them into the lube that you're using, or you're rubbing a lube over the top of them, and you don't really examine them, right? You'll just throw them in. If I had taken this lifter, or you had taken this lifter, and dropped it in your engine, this is certain death. This would have wiped out your cam. I mean, like literally, this would take out a brand new cam in like less than 2 or 3 minutes. It would have been toast. There would have been no saving it. You've got to scrutinize everything. I know that this was an honest mistake. I know the people who work in these stores, they would never do anything malicious like that. But these lifters got returned as a group, and somebody not knowing took them and stuck them back on the shelf, and then here I come in and I got it back in my own hands. Pay attention when you take these things out of the box. That's the video we ended up doing. But the video we intended to do was to talk about the crown and how to check for crown and to look for any unusual straight machine marks on the bottom face of the lifter. Because I'm fairly certain that those lifters that have those marks are not ground with proper or even any at all crown to them. So before you put a lifter in your engine, not only check to see if it has any marks on it that look like it's been used, but also make sure you check for crown. Just put the lifter on a flat surface like this and you should be able to rock it back and forth. The crown isn't big, it's only a thousandth of an inch or so, but on a flat surface you can definitely rock it back and forth. You know, you can feel it. If you can't rock it, it's no good. It will kill your motor. So, like I said, I'm not going to mention the name of the parts store, just know that it's a reputable national chain. They probably advertise on this channel. In fact, I've seen their advertisements on our channel, but that's besides the point. It could have been any of them. It didn't make any difference. This is the kind of mistake that will kill your engine, and letting this thing get past, you know, this is the stuff that bites you in the ass. So I hope you got something from that. Pay attention, scrutinize everything, you know, mistakes are made. So that's it. I'll see you tomorrow.